And just like that, we're back. Game number 2 underway, and Jacob, after that performance from Kanata, Rapid, and Bolt, a standard has definitely been set.
Yeah, it was 9 eliminations. And the interesting thing out of them all, they're not even the team in first place. It's the Rangers Ruin off-spawn winners from game number 1, Tayson, Chicho, and Haris. And honestly, it's not going to be that easy all day long between these two teams. And honestly, I wouldn't wish it any other way. And we're going to go at it yet again, straight off the spawn. A little bit of 50-50 action going down between Pablo and Haris. Right now, it does look like Pablo might have got the first one. Prodoxy's able to get the second. That's a Sentinel pump and immediately put it to use. Gets the drop on Haris. They're going for revenge here. And so far, 2 knocks, 2 eliminations. They just need one more as Pablo cleans that one up. That is all 3 down and out.
And now it's time to see what type of conversion we're going to be looking at with Prodoxy's team, because in the last lobby, after Tayson, Chicho, and Atrus conquered that off-spawn battle, they were still able to find such a steady placement, steady eliminations. But again, they're not the only teams going head-to-head. Veno, Vico, and I'm seeing an eliminated Felixi along the way here at Canyon Crossing. Coyota's team still posing a massive threat.
I know we had a translator helping us out during that interview, and the one thing that didn't need it was, are you going to switch things up? No, is what he was trying to tell the world, but this is how it all started off. Vico was able to get the first drop onto Yuma. That opened things up, but unfortunately, that's just the way off spawns go. His teammate got taken down. They go 2 for 2, and now they got to make that conscientious decision. Do you fight or do you split Canyons Crossing and try to get the reboots later?
Something a little bit more devious, though, possibly taking place here with Clix and Yamzo. Pigs, following suit. Supernova Academy might just be claimed by these 3, but Jacob, we saw so many teams. We didn't see that many Surge bases in the first lobby. Almost have to wonder how many of these teams have been counter-stratting some of those Surge partners and trying to take matters into their own hands. Victor V, Paper, Epic Whale, Dystopia City has been theirs to own, but they still have company to clear out. Rajito and Tete directly underneath Victor V, but that game 1 momentum swing could be all Victor V needs.
But wait a minute. I know everybody at home thinking the same thing. Where is that 3rd team? But back on over to this side of the map. Veno finally able to get the drop onto Yuma yet again. So it was Coyota, it was Rise that went for that revive. They did find success, but the down is there yet again. But he gets dropped right back into their box. So Veno, Vico, their job is not done just yet. They still have to figure out where and when they're going to get these eliminations and how they're going to get Flixi back into the game, because the reboot ban, Taco is down there.
Still a massive advantage, though, for Vico and Veno having the high ground hold. Halad, Kira, and FKS. Peter by Ritual, Cold. They might just have to go head-to-head, but Cold, Peter by Ritual, they're taking more of a scenic route here, Jacob. They don't seem like they're going to stick to the same strategy through each of these lobbies. Everybody has to be on red alert. Even though it didn't pan out in their favor for game 1, you can never count Peterbot out.
Yep, it looks like for game number 2, they had some time to talk about it, but they went ahead and spin that wheel. They said, where do you want to go next? And it looks like could be possibly over towards Foxy Floodgates. We don't know the exact drop, but we know where they have their focus at. We tune on Kanata, Rapid, and Bolts, our Game 1 Victory Royale winners. 9 eliminations, really setting the tone and the pace. And I was talking to you, Taco, during Game 1, saying this is a different vibe from Kanata, this major. This is a whole different feel during the Global Championship, and it's already showing up in Game 1.
Touch on that a little bit later on. Right now, we've got Prodoxy, Pablo, Wingo, Gino. They found Yuma. They're looking to finish what Veno and Vico had started. Originally, Gino definitely getting the better end of that trade. Rise already down and out for the count. Gino nearly falling, but a back-to-back knocks, double eliminations. And Gino holding strong here for Doxy. Gonna find the final piece of the puzzle, and that's gonna be a clean sweep at Canyon Crossing.
And this is exactly what you need for Chino, Pablo, and for Doxy. It's almost impossible to guarantee you're gonna win 12 out of 12. They already lost game 1. So when you do win that off-spawn fight, you have to make each and every single one of those games count. And they're already making it sure that they get those eliminations. And they even take down some of the top teams in their path. We'll switch on over to Hive. Kind of business as usual as Merstache gets the down on the Goofy from across the map. But there's too much space, there's too much distance, and you just look at their loadout, they don't have a ton of crash pads, they don't have a lot of Flowberry Fizz that they're using together, so they're not going to be able to easily rotate on over to get the elimination.
Also an issue with Swizzy having just been freshly knocked. That's going to mean that Merstache is now on revive responsibility, and then immediately straight back to trying to acquire additional surge from across the way. Oceania, though, definitely sending some presents back towards the way of EU. We'll have to check up and see how well this fares, but the elimination feed definitely picking up and revisiting Dystopia City. Victor V and Epic Whale, but Victor V's got 2 eliminations, and they're able to take care of this reboot no problem, but still bound to draw some additional attention.
Yeah, and kind of rightfully so. These guys are just playing out of their minds. Victor V deserves the biggest stage and the biggest round of applause. Honestly, I don't know where Pops is at in this building, but he has to be a part of this loud crowd. And there's the second elimination on the Razo, and they're making sure they know it. Look, it doesn't matter, M8 or not, they're cheering for this young individual.
Can't help but think part of the success that some of these teams are trying to claim, it does start with finding those early eliminations, even a knock, anything to kind of boost your confidence. But Art, someone who was definitely swinging throughout that first lobby. Still, this is a difficult situation to tackle here. Kadu, Pisco, and Striker just continue trying to berate into these walls. They're not going to be able to break through the box just yet, but Southco from overhead alongside Art, they're looking to try and make a separate angle approach. They've actually got Striker's trio a little bit trapped, and despite things looking slightly grim here for Arc and Salco, they've delayed it long enough. This might not be that appetizing of a fight.
Yeah, and luckily for them, though, down below, they have control of a lot of the pieces, so it's kind of going into enemy territory for Tisco, Kadu, and Striker. They have to be careful. The risk-reward scenario here, and they think they have the mismatch, but no, another team rolls up. Upple, Focus, Mixin, and they get at least one of those eliminations on the Kadu. That's going to help. That's a breath of fresh air for Art and Salco, because this distraction is allowing them to stay alive. As Mixin and Upple, they clean up yet another elimination out here deep in the zone.
Dastardly there from Upple, and a steep punish to boot. It just a fresh reminder to every single one of these teams in the lobby, there is no such thing as a clean battle if you can't find that quick time to elimination. It's something that so many of these veterans here on land, we're looking at a ton of major winners, right? Even across the international stage, but Watts getting busy. Raito gonna be eliminated. And checking back now with Mixin, Upple, and Focus, they recognize there's still one more trio member. Granted, with those 2 eliminations, they're recognizing the fact that this is just an easy final piece if we want to take it, but it's not something they have to force.
Yeah, you gotta really be careful here too if you're Arc and Salco, because that team's just floating around. They don't necessarily know Arc and Salco are there, so they just have to be patient as can be and kind of hope they have enough Storm Surge to last these next couple of zones. Because they're not a team that'll build those towers. Arcspo and Salco is one that just kind of fight for their surge all across the western side of the map. But Watts being Malabuka, they have that one elimination so far, uncontested at Outpost. But very, very similar to that last game, this zone is pulling all the way towards the north, so a lot of these teams have to think rather quickly.
But this is a very dangerous position that Ping has taken up. He's being fully collapsed on by the Middle East. Halad gonna find that initial knock onto Ping. Malabuka gonna be forced to try and possibly pull back from this position. FKS, Hero, and Halad just fully intervening with what they were scheming by the Outpost Enclave. They're trying to get some surge across the way from Panzer and Yapko, but that option has just been reduced to nothing.
All about kind of waiting to see if it's worth it. They know at least 2 teams are fighting, but they may not know how many are still alive over on this side of the map. But Malabuka is using that opportunity. Even with his teammate down, he knows Storm Surge is a problem, and he has to worry about it every step of the game. Pablo Chino for Doxy. They get another elimination. This time it was Visuals who have went down. And honestly, this is like redemption. They said we went down early in game one. We didn't get any points. If we have any shot of getting a top 10 in this tournament, we have to pick up the pace, and that they shall do.
This is so reminiscent of how they handled their Major 3 performance in EU. They were scrappy, they were aggressive, and they were successful for it. And right now, when you're staring at a team, oh, hold that thought though, Chino, taken out of the sky. That's the dangers involved with this Flowberry Fizz, and the Crash Pad still has Pablo and Frodoxy to immediately back him up with that double revive, but there's definitely trouble in the horizon. Teams immediately trying to key them, seeing that that knock was successful.
Yeah, just kind of an opportune moment. They just chop out the... I feel like I've seen this more and more and more. They just take that opportunity, catching them slipping, maybe even asleep, and they just end that fight rather quickly. But it was Agers, Acorn, and Pollo that actually did get that knock. It does look like they were trying to rotate in that direction, but they rather quickly to get the revive. No worries there. Malibuca walks. No ping still in sight. There's so many teams here on the southern portion of the map, including Hero, Halal, and FKS. And Alex team even beginning to rotate over along with Anon and Resigns. This southern portion of the map is looking rather busy.
Oshi has just decided, hey, we are so far south, but we need to get Surge somehow. So for them to push forward, they might have taken notice of what was taking place inside of that elimination feed. Slightly different tempo though for Marius, Vanya, and Pixie. Just content to farm things out a little bit at OXR headquarters. Spot King off in his own Surge base. Decent ways away though. So all this plethora of heals and loot and easy rotations, but surprisingly enough, Arc might have just been able to clutch up big time for himself and Salco.
Yeah, I feel like that's almost an understatement. They tried to get the reboot back on the school. He went down again. It's almost no loss because they were able to pick up a huge elimination. It's Malibuca getting a knock on Nam, but we're gonna jump on board Cooper, Reed, and Curly. They were the ones kind of admitting, hey, for us to get Storm Surge, for us to get that damage, it's going to be a challenge. But now you can see what's landing right next to him. A huge drop, a huge upgrade. And that's something a team like this feeling confident once they get it.
Salco and Arc still trying to fight things out here. Big knock onto Uppo, but Focus from overhead. He's going to bring down Salco. It's all down to Focus versus Arc. Focus definitely having the HP advantage currently, but he's going to go for the full finish here onto Salco. That Siphon immediately extending his leverage here. Arc scrambling underneath him, trying to see if he can replenish just a little bit of his shields to boot. But Arc, he's got to make a decision. He's got to make it quick. He's trying to see if he can get this right angle peek. Instead, stuck underneath these pre-existing builds. Focus going to create a little bit of space here. Focus off the right Fizz, trying to get the overhead approach, and Arc, he's still looking to take this fight. He's not backing down. You have to respect the guts to go for it, and Focus still struggling to clean things up. Arc might just be able to turn it, but Arc, he doesn't have a lot of HP. He has to reload. He's not going to be able to win it. He had the opportunity, Jacob, if he just had one more shot.
Very, very unfortunate circumstances for Arc. He ran out of white heals, no bandages, no med kits, those slurp juices. He had to be aggressive, but that played directly into Focus's hands, and he capitalized on it perfectly. Even though they're out of zone, Taco, I expect their full trio to be back into this game rather shortly. Report zone still relatively early on in this game, but 6 eliminations for Halad, FKS, and Hero. Seeing how they're picking up some of those eliminations. It's Walks, he gets caught slipping, clothesline, shut down rather easy. Malibuca as well, no knock onto Malibuca, which means they're out of this game.
We knew it was going to be difficult, though, for Malibuca's team to have a recovery point. They got so locked down at Outpost Enclave, but this is wicked work by Pablo, Chino, and Frodoxy, just slowly making the Frodoxy crouch approach. He's been notorious for this method over the course of this past year, and now, currently, it could be the surprise that Peterbot does not want to have to deal with, or Golden Ritual. But Pablo, Chino, Frodoxy, the patience, the discipline, they know exactly when they want to strike. They could possibly even be looking to try and tackle a couple other teams nearby.
Yeah, just kind of double options. Wait for zone. But if somebody kind of gets a little bit too ahead of themselves, that could be an opportunity as Peterbot shutting down Resigns. And again, no knock. So the #1 team from OCE is out of the lobby in game number 2 as Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual looks to ramp things up. But Pixstorm and Demus, underdog story the entire year. And this is something, I love the underdog story. And everybody, so many people were putting this team in the top 10, maybe even some inside of the top 5. Yesterday, we were watching their games. They were kind of having fun with some sky bases, but now is the time to really put it all to the test. Zone favoring their side of the map. They just had to travel up a little bit towards the north, but now they got a position ahead of everybody team toward the south. This is a good chance for them to start to accumulate surge.
Their low ground fragging potential has been what's really struck them into the spotlight from EU, but you can't help but think about the fact that even in that first lobby, I know Sven has been cooking up some strats with his Polish boys because we saw Pixstorm and Demus attempting to maintain height at one point. Curious if they tried to do that same sort of mentality in the secondary lobby. Height was definitely a little bit scrappy last game, but King, Phaser, and OPA's in a little bit of trouble here, but they know Focus is in even more trouble. They want to see if they can maybe isolate that solo, keep him pinpointed, keep him away from their position. PHZN is going to need a bailout soon, though.
Yeah, and this is a scary situation for the entire trio, for that matter. Finally, they find some heals, but I was just thinking 177 above the damage threshold. It is above the damage threshold, but it is not a ton. Things can change rather quickly, especially you see Merstash, you see Swizzy, Queasy on the other side of the mountain in the zone, pushing further and further towards the northeast. And this is where in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, on that side of the map, Taco, there's mountain ranges, there's dips, there's dives, there's so many different things in terms of elevation. Teams better be prepared.
And look, game 1 definitely did not pan out the way that Acorn, Poyo, and Agers would have normally anticipated, or anybody honestly in this audience would have expected them to do. But with so much surge damage already online, Jacob, this dead side rotate is absolutely perfect. They don't have to worry about encountering any of the clusters that might be starting to build on the edge of zone. The real thing that they're gonna have to be very, very cautious of is just not getting beamed from the sky.
Yeah, they're gonna be rotating to a lot of teams for that matter. So that's why they're trying to use that new upgraded launch pad. You mix in the Flowberry Fizz, and you tend to kind of get out of render distance for some teams, and you kind of get a free rotation in. It all depends on who's kind of looking up at a moment. And now we're seeing a peak with Kanata, Rapid, and Bolts of what that southern side of the zone actually looks like. This is what Agers, Acorn, and Poyo are actually rotating into. So for Kanata, Rapid, and Bolts, they already won game number 1, 9 eliminations. For them, I think it's kind of like slow and steady wins the race. They're not going to get greedy for eliminations. They're going to let them naturally present themselves throughout the course of this game.
Love to see some of these elevation shifts, though. It really challenges some of these IGLs finding the most optimal path for their teammates. Swizzy, Queasy, Merstash, not going to get too tagged up here by Iyamzo, Higgs, and Clix. A little bit of a missed opportunity. Victor V, though, that's going to finally be a connection there from Iyamzo. The future trying to see if he can pop off here, but it's going to be tough. They don't want to forfeit their position right now, Jacob, to try and key against Victor V, Epic, and Paper. They're just going to let them continue to tunnel through towards that side of the mountain phase. Kazi and Aspect, though, stuck. Prodoxy, Pablo, Chino. They're not gonna let these guys go.
Bro, they got the exotic Slapberry Fizz, they got Slurp Juices, they got Splashes. I know you start to think a little scared, like how much do they have to stay this deep in the zone? It is gonna be a 2-tick, but they have more than enough, and 2 potential eliminations, which will grant them Siphon, so that way they can save those heals even more. As Prodoxy's doing his lurk, patented lurk here coming out, up above. Chino's not gonna need the help that he thought he did. They're gonna clean up those eliminations. They have 11 eliminations. What are we witnessing out of Prodoxy, Pablo, and Chino?
They're making up for lost time. That last lobby, they had 0 placement points from being wiped off spawn, but 44 elimination points is absurd, Jacob. And they're not looking to slow down anytime soon. What I'm worried about for them right now is they are taking a lot of storm damage. Storm sickness could definitely pose a problem for them later on, but we'll just have to see how they continue to move through this lobby. Meanwhile, Peterbot, Cole, Ritual, a little bit stuck. We're so used, everybody is used to seeing Peterbot, Ritual, and Cole be super stacked from those divisional cups, but here in the global stage, they just haven't found a home.
Honestly, quite shocking. We tune into Mr. Savage, Reason, no chap in sight. Getting eliminated early, but I'm a glass half full type of guy. You see them center zone, so as long as they have enough Storm Surge, they're not gonna have to worry about rotating from point A to point B like most of these teams. And then you can see the whole stack side, the eastern side of the zone, that has the elevation. So now it's kind of like a mind game for some of these players. Do I give up my little bit of high ground to rotate a little bit more center where there's less and less pressure from some of these teams, or do I stay and hope for the best that the zone cuts back to the northeast?
Queasy already scouting out exactly where he wants to go next, with Cooper Reed and Curly holding down the high ground, though. Peterbot, Ritual, Cold, they're a little bit stuck here. They can't break through. Instead, they're gonna have to deal with Prodoxy pulling up directly behind them, and they just don't have that much material. They've got a completely stacked trio in comparison, loadout-wise, and Prodoxy recognizes just how in tatters Peterbot's team actually is. That could be a very dicey situation. Instead, focus now from Chino, Pablo, and Prodoxy going to be applied directly towards Epic Whale and Paper, trying to make a slightly lower rotational approach, but Chino and Pablo, they are completely smothering Paper and Epic.
Yeah, just kind of force them out of the zone. And it's not a ton of damage each and every second, but that definitely adds up. Look at Paper, HP absolutely diminished in the blink of an eye because of that rotation. But it might have been worth it. It pulls towards their south with a lot of these teams, but Prodoxy knows they're trying to put down pressure. 10 HP, barely surviving. There's a second too quick Beacon. That's Ritual. That's Cold and Peterbot. One's gonna go down. Cold's gonna fall as well. Ritual by himself yet again. He's able to get the knock onto Pablo, but there is no chance of him getting the elimination.
Ritual's gonna opt for the trade of revives. He loses Cold entirely, and he's not able to actually stick it to Peterbot. Peterbot's gonna be left behind. Ritual gonna be forced to play it out as a solo now. Chino, Pablo, and Prodoxy, they might even look to hunt him later on. They know he's somewhere tangled up in this lower layer, but still, they are just so heavily looted up, Jacob. The world is their oyster right now.
From 11 to 13, big numbers in game 2. Agers, Poyo trying to do the same thing, but they just run into speed bump after speed bump. Bolts gets the elimination. Active Storm Surge on the Agers. He does have some heals, but he needs to start figuring out where he's going to get the damage from as a solo. You see in the numbers just kind of tip and top, up and down, 30 to 20. He's trying to figure it out, but every 7 seconds, 25 damage. He lands just a chip shot, but it's enough to get above the damage threshold. But as soon as he starts to try to rotate in, high ground just focuses him and beans him down to 58 HP.
Exactly what you'd expect to see from Hype, but Agers still found this little pocket, this little bubble of breathing room, that is, until the surge damage starts to tick away at his life again. Agers just trying to see if he could come up with anything. Sure, they managed to dip a little bit into the placement points, but it's just not enough. They've got to go on a massive recovery tour for game 3. Swizzy, Queasy, and Mustache, though, they've already found their spot in this lobby, and it's straight towards Hype.
Queasy has one motto: take height, don't get eliminated. And obviously in the first game, they gave it up because they didn't want to go down. This time is their chance. 400 plus damage above the threshold, and it's continuously counting upward, and they pull the zone. That is the biggest difference from game 1 to game 2. They now have the front side, and they have full control. And Prodoxy trying to fly his way in. He instantly gets knocked down, and now it's up to Pablo, Chino, and they're not immediately trying to drop down low. They're trying to assess the situation and figure out if they can take it.
Chino's been on fire. Pablo, still 3 eliminations too, but 11 elims despite losing Prodoxy. This is still a classic scenario for Pablo and Chino. They might still be able to make it work. They're trying to see if they can figure out, maybe take away a little bit of an advantage play, because these teams are looking for pre-edits in the mid-ground and even in the lower layers, but they're not going to allow it. Mustache, Swizzy, and Queasy are the real threat right now, though. They just continue to apply steady pressure to those mid layers. It's a big part of the reason why these teams are just getting so picked apart in between.
And you're seeing, as soon as they made it inside of the zone, they reconnected, making it that much harder for anybody to take him down. Marius, he's now trying to move up. 10 damage above the threshold. At least they're in front of the curve. Quickly looking towards the right, Curly, Cooper, and Reed. That was their momentary target, but they realized they have to stay ahead of the zone. They cannot get too greedy and fall behind.
But nobody can come close to Queasy and Mustache. They're just still overtaking the high ground. King, big time though. Pigs eliminated. PH Sin soon to follow though. If he's not careful, he's gonna be forced to pull back here. But King and PH Sin hit by hip. Flowberry Fizz punishing as much shield as they possibly can, because they have to keep be forced to drop another layer. Height's not going to allow them to press forward any longer, and they might just drop directly into Epic Whale's hands.
We're seeing a lot of the damage again. Higgs goes down. Pixie cleans that one up. Queasy gets the knock onto Iyamzo. They're making sure that they make it count, that they got high ground in this game. 5 eliminations, and once again, they're connecting it. They're reinforcing. They're making sure nobody has a chance to contest them on the high ground.
Everybody underneath them is just a victim at this point, Jacob. Marius, Vanya, and Pixie seemingly undiscovered for the time being, though. Kanata in a little spot of trouble here. Just saw him take a massive chunk of his shield. Pixie now looking to play the medkit from the active zone. Swizzy, though, shutting down Vanya the moment that he tries to push forward. And Mustache directly assisting here. Bolts, you're rocking a hard place, and Madi is going to be knocked. Marius eliminated, essentially. There's no way his teammates are going to be able to get to him.
Yeah, and you're also seeing Kanata fall, Rapid down. Not sure about both. Things are going sideways very quickly, and it gets even more worse because the zone is pulling over that mountain. If you didn't prepare for it, it's going to be lights out, but Swizzy trying to stop Surf Juice. He's going to be the first one that does go down for Mustache. Queasy, that's a huge signal. That's a huge sign. They're trying to get away from this catalyst on the low ground.
But Queasy and Mustache are the only ones that made it to the mountaintop, and Queasy, it is just raining down from above. Queasy continuing to find those eliminations. Pump gonna be dropped. It's only Baka and Yeko, and Panzer's been eliminated too. Queasy and Mustache away with it. No one left to challenge them. Kings of the mountain.
If you were to ask anybody, who do you think is going to win? M8 is all what the crowd wants to see. And now 2 of their favorite players in the world just picked up a Game 2 victory royale. Just lighting up the arena as we speak, and you're seeing the looks on their face. Now I want to know what they're thinking. Frankie, let us know.
Mustache, you have made the Gentlemates more happy than they have ever been here in Leon. What's it like to take the second victory royale here?
I mean, it's nice, feeling nice. I want to win more games, we're going to win more games, and they're going to scream more louder with every game.
I think they will. Queasy, it felt like in game 1, you tried to take the high ground maybe a bit too early. You couldn't hold it.